Hello, welcome back to another episode of Friends and Enemas. My name is Lindsay. I'm your host. And who do I have with me? Who do I have the pleasure of talking to again today?
I'm back again for some reason.
And what's your name? What about people that have never heard your voice?
I'm Jared. I am Lindsay's husband.
God, you sound so excited to be my spouse. My name is Jared. I am Lindsay's husband. Thank you guys again for being here. Today, we're going to talk about some embarrassing new grad moments. So a lot of you have written in your stories. Thank you so much. I'm going to be reading a few of them today. If you are new here, we love reading listener stories, both from new grad experiences, embarrassing new grad moments, spooky hospital tales, really anything in between. Hospital gossip, the tea. There's some coming in right now that are so flipping good, and I can't wait to read them to you. But send in your stories. The email is in the description below. So yeah, let's get started. Do you have any new grad embarrassing stories that pop out to you?
The only one that comes to mind is I had a patient that was an elderly woman, and she's tiny, like under 100 pounds. And for whatever reason, I can't recall why, she had a new prescription for Coreg. And it was like a really big dose. And I remember thinking, like, even at the time, I'd been a nurse for like a year or less than a year. It's like, God, this is a huge dose. This lady's tiny. And so I reached out to cardiology, and they're like, yeah, just give it. And I gave it, and it was like right at shift change. And so I gave report, and, I gave, because she was doing fine at the time. So I gave report that reflected that. And I come back the next day, and like everybody's like whispering and looking at me, and they're like, did you hear about last night, your patient? And, your stomach just drops whenever you feel, because you already deal with like it. I'm at like 4 years, and I still have 5 years, and I still have some feelings of, like that pre-shift dread. Like, did I forget anything? Did I, am I going to get in trouble? What are people going to think? Blah, blah, blah. But
I get that too.
I get there, and then the nurse, she was pretty upset because, of course, the dose of Corag was way too big. And then I get there, and this little lady has a central line. She's on pressors.
Oh, shit.
All that. Yes. Yeah. And so, they said that I should have played up a little bit more about the new dose of Coreg. I just gave it in report. And so they said that the nurse felt that my report did not reflect the condition of the patient. And so I got into a little bit of trouble for that. And it was that was embarrassing.
It's like a learning moment.
Yeah. But I'm sure I've done some dumb stuff that I just can't think of it. Maybe it'll come to me during these stories.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think I've done something similar like that. And like, for all our new grads out there, you are going to make mistakes. It's inevitable. I think the best way to not make life-changing mistakes where it could affect your patient's life or your license is by asking questions. And like, you did ask a question, you called the doctor, and so it made you feel okay with it. But I guess at the end of the day, it's maybe ask a couple questions, because mine was actually a med error too. I've talked about this on maybe like Instagram before or something, but I was still on orientation. I was giving meds by myself at this time, and I had pulled the patient's meds. I got one out of the fridge, went over to the patient, we had Epic. So I was scanning the meds in, and this pop-up kept coming up, and I didn't really understand it. And I kept exiting out of it. I was like, stop, like, let me scan this damn med. Scan the med. It like keeps popping up. And I don't remember the exact verbiage, but something along the lines of like, this med ain't in the system. Like, what are you doing? And I was like looking at the med, reading the medication. I don't remember what it was, but I don't know. I don't remember what it was at all, but I kept reading it. I could read it on the MAR. It's right there. I'm like, what? It's same dosage. Why is it not? Whatever. So I skip over it. I click it in, and I give the med, and I go tell my preceptor. Shout out to Erin, who's an awesome preceptor. I'm like, hey, yeah, I gave the meds, but it kept popping up that like it wasn't their med or something. And she was like, what? She's like, did you give it? I was like, yeah. She was like, Why? Why did you give it if it was giving you a pop-up to stop? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's
I
your
don't know.
new grad tip. If in most systems, if you can't easily advance through and there's like a pop-up or something stopping you, then you need to stop
Yep.
and look at what you're doing.
And ask a question, which is not what I did. So we figured out it was the correct medication, but the wrong patient. So when I pulled it out of the fridge, you know, like in the fridge, it has like everyone's medications in there. It's not really labeled. You have to read the label really well and make sure it's your patient's medication.
Mhm.
So luckily it was the exact same med, the exact same dose, just wrong medication, which is still a medication error. And it could have been much worse. But let me tell you, the feeling of my heart dropping through my asshole. Oh my God. I started crying. I was embarrassed. I thought the whole unit thought I was so stupid. I mean, it's a simple mistake, but it could have been much worse. And I'm telling you guys that so that you just stop and ask questions. Like that's the main point of this whole thing is ask questions. Anytime you feel curious or unsure. And if someone right away gives you an answer and you're like, okay, you can still ask someone else another question. Another one of my new grad embarrassing moments was I had a young patient on a ventilator. I was in the room with them and I noticed that their SpO2 was going down. This actually isn't that embarrassing because I did the right thing, but it took me a moment to realize their SpO2 was going down. I looked at the vent. The vent wasn't sounding. No alarm was going off, but it was blinking red. And I was like, weird. I have not clicked the silence button. At this point, I was too scared to even touch ventilators. So I wasn't touching those ventilators. I would always call an RT, which you should do as well. But their SpO2 is going down and the family is having like an in-depth conversation with me. And I'm like hyper focused on this SpO2 dropping in the 80s now. And I was like, you know what? One moment, I think someone's calling my name, ran out there to grab my preceptor because I was trying not to alarm the family. And was like, hey, the patient's SpO2 is in the 80s. I don't know why. She's like, is the ventilator going off? It's like, it's blinking red, but it's not sounding. She runs in there with me. We calmly, you know, how they teach you to watch the patient all the way back down to the machine. There was a kink in the line and they weren't getting any air. So we found it and everything, but actually that was a bad ventilator that had to go in for testing because it was not sounding. Like we got the RT in there, we got a bunch of people in there. And I guess that wasn't really that embarrassing, but it took me a moment to like understand something's wrong.
Yeah.
And to have the courage to leave the conversation with the family and just go get who I need to, because at the end of the day, I'm there for the patient. Mm-hmm. But there's like this weird thing when you're a new grad of trying to please everybody and make sure that everyone thinks you're competent. Yeah. And I don't know, the patient was fine, by the way, but anytime you have like that gut feeling that you got to go get somebody, just do it. Yeah. You can do it without alarming people too, which is what I did. But okay, so I've got a new grad story here I'm going to read to you guys. This says, hi, Lindsay. One embarrassing story that I will never forget happened when I was doing my consolidation / preceptorship on a surgical floor. I had a patient with an NG tube. Mind you, this was my first time ever working with an NG tube. I was helping said patient with his morning care, helping him wash up and get changed into a fresh gown, etc. When I was changing his gown, the NG was obviously not pinned to his clothes, so it was kind of just hanging there. Oh God, I feel like I know where this is going. When I was leaning behind him to tie his gown, he either A, pulled the NG out himself, or B, it fell out due to not being pinned to anything. I get it, mistakes happen, and we could have just reinserted it again, but this particular patient required the surgeon to reinsert it. So my first day of preceptorship, and I needed to call a surgeon and come to the floor to reinsert his NG tube. Thankfully, he was super nice about it, but I was so embarrassed. Needless to say, I will be forever very conscious when dealing with an NG tube. I feel like that's like a simple thing. Like that definitely has happened to numerous nurses. Mm-hmm. I have actually pulled my patient's NG tube out on accident. Why'd your eyes do that?
I just pulled a piece out of our desk.
Oh.
On accident.
I thought you were doing that because, well, quit messing with stuff.
No, but yeah, that's, I think the scary part of that whole thing is having to call GI back in to drop it again. Cause, yeah, that's
be intimidating.
They're super busy. Like, coming in to drop an NG tube, and a lot of times they feel like that why doesn't nursing just do it? But then you've got policy and stuff like that, and there's nothing we can do about it. And so whenever those get pulled, they get very upset. But it's good that he was nice about it.
It is good. And also, like, to be honest, to me, I'm like, this isn't really that bad. Things happen. Like, it could have been worse. But as a new grad, I understand how embarrassing this is, because even I would still consider myself a new grad at 4.5 years. Like, on the scale of how long have you been a nurse, I feel like I'm closer to new grad than a freaking seasoned nurse. So, like, I did this maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
And their NG tube was caught on my scrubs. And whenever I was turning them, it was caught on me. It wasn't pinned to them, and pulled it out.
Yeah.
I was like, my bad.
Yeah, that's why
My bad.
NG tubes, you can go in, and that's one time I will take the time. I'll wipe it all down. I'm using Mastisol, adhesive. I'm putting the little nasal thing on there, and I want that to stay. And if like they have an oilier face, I make sure that I change it, because I don't enjoy dropping NG tubes. The patient certainly doesn't enjoy redoing NG tubes. My patient was awake when that happened, and they did not like me for a moment. And I get it. I'd be a little pissed too, but like at the end of the day, like for my new grads, shit happens. But did they die? Did they almost die? No. And like at the end of the day, that's part of being human, is making mistakes, silly mistakes, I will say. And pulling an NG tube is a silly mistake. It's an accident, and you'll never do it again. Let me tell you. Now I trace that NG tube all the way down. I'm like, where is it? It's not going to get caught on me again. I'm not pulling that out, because it hurts. It seems like a lot of hospitals are going to the standard for feeding in a lot of the hospitals that we've seen seems to be going the way of post-pyloric stuff. And at that point, you generally get a nasal bridle, which is a little bit more traumatic to place. You're going clear back from pulling it. I think placing it is the really hard part, because whenever you pull it, you just snip
if it gets snagged.
Oh yeah. If you accidentally snag it, yeah, for sure. But it's less likely for it to come out in general, or to move, or to slide out, or because sometimes if you're not watching your placement depth closely, and that's not getting tracked, it'll come out 4 or 5 centimeters, nobody noticed, comes out another 2, nobody notices, and it's at that point it's not really doing its job anymore.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I'm not naming names on here because I wasn't clear if it was anonymous. So these are all going to be anonymous for now. So thank you for sending that in, though. So let's move on to the next one. It says, hi there, sharing so others will feel less awkward. I was in a new grad residency program for the ER, and they had you cycle through units starting at med-surg, then ICU, and then ER. I was on my ICU round, and my preceptor and I were going to a rapid response. That's just how it worked at this hospital. ICU nurses respond to the rapids. It quickly turned into a code, and I saw him pushing epi and sodium bicarb, and I was in awe. I was like, how do you know how much to push? He's like, it comes like that. Didn't you do this in your ACLS class? I admitted awkwardly I didn't get my ACLS yet, and he replied, you'd better get it fast. You're not even technically qualified to be on our floor right now. I got it that weekend. He was the nicest guy, but it was so awkward. Make sure you're coordinating with your educators to have all the certificates required. He sounds like a fucking douche to me.
I've never, and it might be policy. I've never seen a facility where you can't be on the floor. Like it's,
you're in your preceptorship. You're not supposed to be on your own yet.
Your whole job is to be there and see things. And medicine draws those personalities for whatever reason. It's.
I'm not a fan of if this person was on their own, hired in the ICU, yeah, you need your ACLS, but that would be required from your manager, not from this preceptor, new grad, preceptee, that is going through different units. This guy sounds like a douche to me.
And I don't know where stand a lot of these
personalities.
I don't know where these people went to nursing school, but my nursing school, we did not I probably learned 90% of the job
On the job.
because the nursing school did what nursing schools are supposed to do. It teaches you to pass the NCLEX,
Exactly.
and then you learn all your stuff there. So I've never understood nurses being like, "You weren't taught that in nursing school." Well, no, we didn't change a central line in nursing school. You don't do that.
Exactly. It's like, this is the most frustrating thing to me when people act like they were never once in nursing school. And I know that there's a generation of nurses that did not go to quote unquote nursing school. There used to be nurses that could, you learned at hospital based training. Like that's how you became a nurse, like way back in the day. And there's still nurses working today that never went to nursing school. But you have to realize, like, that's how people learn, is at the hospital most of the time. Like nursing school does teach us the basics, and it teaches us how to pass the NCLEX. But overall, it doesn't. You learn the stuff in the hospital. So treating someone like they're stupid because they didn't learn it in nursing school is just beyond me.
Yeah.
Like it drives me flipping nuts. I don't think this person was in the wrong, especially they're not the one performing the code. She was following her preceptor, who happened to be the rapid response nurse, going to a rapid response. Like, this guy sounds like a douche. I can't stand nurses like this.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't make it, your entire job at that point is to go to every unit and watch what it's like. You're not like trying to practice independently or anything like that.
Right.
So it's there do be some attitudes.
Healthcare brings the weirdest personality sometimes. Like, I'm a pretty laid back person, and don't get me wrong, like, you should be competent on your unit, but competency comes with time. And like, this has nothing to do with the person not knowing. Yeah. I mean, it has everything to do with them not knowing, but it's not a thing of they're not intelligent enough. It's they're not taught it yet. They're not supposed to know it yet. Like, I don't know. I have a really big issue with things like that. To piggyback on this one, when I was a nurse tech, I had never worked in a clinical setting, a hospital setting, any type of healthcare, anything. I was a vet tech before this, so it was much different. And when I was on my own, finally, I was with a patient and a nurse. The patient started to code, and she looked at me and she said, "Grab the crash cart." Yeah, I knew it was dire. Whatever this crash cart was, I knew I needed it right then and there because it didn't look good. And I left and I ran out and I ran to the nurse's station, and I found a PT that I felt was kind to me, who didn't make fun of me all the time. And I went up to her and I said, "Hey, do you know what the crash cart is?" And she stopped what she was doing and looked at me and said, "What? Who needs it?" And I told her. She got up, ran, grabbed the crash cart, took it to that patient, and came and grabbed me privately and pulled me aside and said, "This isn't necessarily your fault, but I need to know why you didn't know what a crash cart was." She walked me over to the other crash cart and said, "This is a crash cart. The big red or sometimes turquoise cart that's on the unit for when people are coding." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know what that was because no one pointed it out to me. Yeah. Nobody told me that." She's like, "This is a problem, not because of you, because I wasn't taught it. I had never worked in healthcare.
Right.
Why would I know what a crash cart is?"
Yeah.
But I was so embarrassed and super thankful that she did not tell the whole unit because I was so embarrassed.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know where that's just like how hospitals are now. Like you don't know where the crash cart is, but you damn sure know all your HIPAA rules. Yeah. You know what to do in a fire and all that.
You
different
can't
stuff.
have a water bottle at your desk.
Yeah, where to put your water bottle.
But we're missing the point that some people have never worked in healthcare, so they're not going to know these terms and this lingo that we have right off the bat. Like, that ended up being a whole thing with like management, and they had to redo our education for techs and to make sure everyone knows what a crash cart is, because that could have been that patient's life, because I did not know what a damn crash cart was. Mm-hmm. But I tell a lot of new grads that story because, that's a pretty embarrassing one for me. This one's really short. It says, "I told the charge nurse that we didn't have any NS and asked if 0.9% sodium chloride would do the trick."
Yes. It will.
Wait, I love that one. Oh, that's like, That's like harmless.
There are so many acronyms in healthcare, and like half of them you'll see at all hospitals, and then every hospital you go to will have 3 or 4 that they just made up internally.
Yeah.
And so and every, you know, without fail, if you don't know what that acronym is at that specific facility, they're like, you know, they give you that look and then they tell you what it stands for. And it's like 15 letters long, and you're supposed to know that it's an acronym. Like, at what point are acronyms no longer?
Yeah, and like for this one, like again, this is like you don't know what you don't know. I know when we started travel nursing, I asked for a core track. So is my patient going to get a core track? Or no, they were telling me the patient's going to get a Dobhoff. And I was like, a Dobhoff? What's a Dobhoff? And they were like, oh, I thought you said you were an ICU nurse. Oh, how long have you been a nurse? And I was like, what the fuck? I'm sorry, I've never heard of this Dobhoff. And they come and show me it. I'm like, oh, the core track. We called that a core track at our place. They're like, this isn't the core track. The core track is the actual machine. Da 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 da. Oh, I'm telling you right now, at my first job, we called the whole thing a core track. So I thought that yellow tube was a core track, not a Dobhoff.
Yeah, because they're super similar. Like the core track has a tip in it that can be read by that machine, and the Dobhoff is just a weighted tip, and it floats itself.
See, and like again, it's the same damn. Just be nice when you're teaching people. You don't have to be like, oh, you didn't know that you didn't learn this in nursing school. Yeah. Oh, I hate that mentality.
There was one that I didn't. Oh, nAeOn, Naeon. You ever see that in its doctor's notes generally?
No, I don't think so.
I see it all the time, and I don't know if I didn't see it till I got out to California. I just figured out like a year ago. It means no acute events overnight. Oh. Yeah, so I would see it like in caps at the very beginning. I'm like, oh, okay, guys, the guy's nAeOn. That's all right. So let's move on and go to what's next. And no, that's what it stands for.
Okay, that's like BIBA, BIBA in California. At every hospital, I would see that in notes, brought in by ambulance. Yeah. I thought I'd be cool and use it in Wichita in my notes. They said, what the fuck is this? Yeah. What's BIBA? BIBA. Yeah. I said, brought in by ambulance. They said, we don't do that here. Oh, check. But it just shows, like, honestly, travel nursing has been the best thing for experience because it shows that everyone is so different. Every hospital is so different with terms, lingo, how they do things. I mean, policies, it's so different. And so if you're listening out there and you get a nurse that doesn't know what something is, it doesn't mean they're stupid. It might be called something totally different in a different region of the United States. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. Okay, we have one more. It says, hi, Lindsay. First of all, love your page. Thank you. Always can count on it to give me a good laugh. On to the new grad story. Let's set the scene. It's my first week of orientation in the operating room. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like I'm on my game. I'm finally on my own, and I love it. The case is in progress. I hear the surgeon's phone ring. It's the hospital calling. I let him know, and he tells me to answer it. Connection is in and out, and I hear, quote, wife, ... was in an MVA in critical condition. That's all I heard. After asking the person on the other line to repeat their message, I felt confident that they just informed me that the surgeon's wife was in an MVA and she is in critical condition. The room goes quiet. The surgeon stops the case and asks me for more information. I get back on the phone, and the lady on the other line, after hearing what I just told the surgeon, proceeds to rip me apart, telling me to never do something like that ever again, and that it was not funny. I immediately began sweating at the realization of what I had just done. And I had to then explain to the room that it was in fact not the surgeon's wife, but a husband and wife that were in an MVA. This was over 3 years ago. My palms are still sweating thinking about it. A little long, but I would say a pretty unique new grad horror story. Hope you enjoyed. I definitely enjoyed that. And I don't think that was long at all. I needed all those details.
Yeah. Dear God.
I would be shitting myself.
Yeah, because he's in an active surgery. He or she is in an active surgery. And, because I don't know if it's like, Grey's Anatomy, they're like, no, don't tell them until the surgery's over. They need to perform. And so I don't know if it's like one of those things, but yeah, to be first of all, to say it during a surgery and then to be wrong.
To be wrong.
Yeah, that's pretty
I would say
terrifying.
both are probably off. Like, I think you should wait. If they're in an active surgery, you should not tell them.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, what if they accidentally, like, I don't know what surgery they're doing. What if it's like someone's neck and they slice their carotid? Like, what from shock? Like,
Well, and-
so there's that, but then there's
Yeah.
also like they deserve to know.
Yeah, and I think there's no way to like give it your best right after you hear information like that. I feel like it would have to affect your, I don't know anything about surgery, but I feel like it would have to affect your performance. Like, that's horrible news.
Yeah, that's terrifying. I like honestly, I feel so bad for you for the person that sent this in. Like, I would never. Oh, just that's dreadful. I totally feel you on that one. That one's probably the worst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's be an awkward room afterwards.
No, it'd be so awkward. Are you kidding me?
No.
I feel like something like that definitely. I didn't do anything like that, but I know there's more embarrassing stories that will have to come to me from my own history of new grad.
Mm-hmm.
That was short and sweet, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Please don't forget to send in your embarrassing new grad stories or any hospital-like stories that you've witnessed. So thank you guys again for listening. Please don't forget to download the episode, give the podcast a rating, and follow us for more. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.